I wish to study the energies in the Shattered Locus. Capture some of the creatures feeding upon the crystals there. I need them alive.
They did try to do more than arrest this guy. Maybe, again, I'm not trying to jump to a web, but there were some things about that really just don't add up. I'm still very, skeptical of the official story on that. But maybe there's actually something. But, after continuing to bag Israel, the Epstein thing was a big one. The Iran thing was like a death blow. It was and at this point, it's not like there's another election coming up. We already kind of know what the Trump thing is. We've gotten some small wins. The border control is a big win. I shouldn't say that. That's not a small thing. He really did turn that around. He deserves credit for that. But everything else, Nick, everything else has just been a disaster. And so, I don't know, I think we're in a similar place where it's like, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't tell me that it's like, we have to just blindly support this while our country's still falling apart.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no argument anymore. In 2024...
I'm sorry, why don't you guys just grab me a water? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, in 2024, there was at least this argument to be made that maybe it would be different this time. And like you said, you articulated the reasons why. They tried to kill him, they impeached him, they charged him. So the question was, is it going to be different this time? Did he learn? Is there going to be better people? And I get that. So I didn't begrudge people that did vote for him, but there were signs. Nikki Haley endorsed him, and he said we were going to go to war with Iran, basically. He said they were going to bring in the H-1Bs and all this stuff. And, and then they appointed the cabinet within 3 weeks. Rubio for Secretary of State. And I guess the interesting thing I have to say, beyond what is obvious, which is that it's kind of crashing and burning, is I look at a guy like Kurt Mills, Kurt Mills at AMCON, and, he seems like he's a good guy. He's 100% on board, maybe more with you than me, but, he knows relevant facts. And I remember watching him during the negotiation between Trump and, or I should say, Witkoff and Araghchi or whoever it was on the Iranian side. And he would go on Steve Bannon every week and say, any day now, like they're going to make a deal and, Netanyahu's going to be put in his place. And I'm thinking, have you ever seen anything in history? It never goes that way. And it never goes that way because, like you said before, it's sort of axiomatic. Trump is not willing to shut them down. He's just not willing to resist them or go there. He doesn't care enough or whatever the reason is. It's hard to know what's in his heart or in his mind. He won't do it. And then, I think it was like 3 days before we went to war, he goes, it's not on radar that Trump is going to attack Iran. That's not on radar. It's like, buddy, read the tea leaves. Like, of course he's going to go and bomb Iran. So, and I kind of get where you're coming from about the Pompeo. I was even skeptical about the Pompeo thing because I said they got a list of these people they're going to put in. And that's why I'm a big believer in this. It's not even, people say, are you going to vote for a Democrat? We got to think beyond that. To me, it's just about rejection. They set the table, and you can't really choose what's on the table, but you could choose whether to eat or not, whether you're going to play the game. And so my bigger idea is just reject. And I like what you said. It encapsulates it. It's bullshit. No, thank you. You're promising stuff you're not going to deliver. When you put this stuff out there, the big beautiful bill, $150 billion for border enforcement, they're not deporting even 1,000 people a day. Like it's nothing. And so I just look at these guys like Dan Caldwell crying on Tucker, at Kurt Mills, all that kind of stuff. People saying, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. We're going to pressure them. And I'm like, aren't you tired? We did that already. We did that in the first term. Because I was kind of in that place in the first term where it's like, we're going to control the personnel. We're going to do this. And I knew people in the admin. I knew people on the campaign that didn't get hired because they were on the campaign. Because the people in the admin were from the Rubio campaign or the Bush campaign. And it's like, we just need something that at the end of the day is what we want. Not a compromise. I know that's not how politics works, but we just need something that is promising and intends on delivering what we really care about. And Trump was never that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's it's a shame in a way. A friend of mine, Scott Horton, always says the country needed Ron Paul and we got Donald Trump, which is kind of how I see it. Maybe you would say more like Pat Buchanan or someone like that. But I think both of us would take either of those options if they were on the table. But it is, and I do think, I thought the Epstein one was a particular, it's interesting how much that really was devastating for Donald Trump. And it was more than just the Epstein story. I think it was like what that symbolized, that it was like right at the heart of his political raison d'etre, which was draining the swamp.
Right.
And it was like, come on, man, what's a better example of the swamp than this? Oh, we won't touch that? Okay. All right, then. So I guess we know how serious we are about this. And I got to say, I see nothing promising about J.D. Vance. I think my view of it seems to be that I do think that he's maybe kind of sympathetic to my foreign policy views, and I think that he does seem to err more on that side, but I just don't think he has anywhere near the stones to stand up to anyone. I think he wants to be president more than he wants to care about that, and that right there that's the deal breaker then. Okay then, so you're not, and again, to your point, I think, which I would just maybe modify, and I think you probably agree with this too, it's like, I'm not even against compromise. There's got to be a compromise.
Yes,
there's got to be a reasonable compromise. I am willing to compromise on a few things, but the compromise can't be I have to bend over and grab my ankles. That's not that's not a reasonable compromise that I'm trying to sign up to. So it's like I just don't, and I wonder, because there's always two ways to look at this, and the conventional political thinking, the Charlie Kirk thinking, would be well, any dissension here only helps the Democrats, right? So if we're not all rallying around them, then we get the Democrats who are the worst, biggest threat. But of course, I think our rejoinder to that would be that, Well, no, not releasing the Epstein files is what gives and when I say file, just not getting to the bottom of it. That's what gives them that. And what is J.D. Vance going to run on? I mean, how is he going to capture that energy that Donald Trump had? We're furious with this system. The system is so corrupt and so dishonest and so such a betrayal to every American that we want someone to go in there and be a wrecking ball against them. How is J.D. Vance possibly going to capture that energy?
Right.
When there's nobody's believing it anymore.
Well, and with Trump, I feel like a lot of people just forgot really what he was. There were a lot, because I feel like not a lot of people actually voted for him in 2016 that are around now.
Yeah.
And you and I know, because we both, you're around longer than me, but we were both around then. And I feel like there's a lot of young people and maybe even like big supporters of Trump now that weren't really with him in 16. And so what I'm trying to say is, for a lot of people to have amnesia, they think that he's a Republican, he's a conservative, because that's really what he's become. That is what he was in 20. That's what he was in 24. He's against the radical left. He's against the Democrats. But in 16, he started out fighting the Republican establishment. And he really ran as like an independent.
Yeah.
And I always go back to the proposition of Trump. This is my basis for not voting for him last year, which is not, I'm better than the Democrats, which is the minimum.
Yeah.
You're a Republican. Oh, he's better than Kamala. Okay, isn't that a given? Like, shouldn't you be? It's not that he's a conservative or anything like that. He said, the system is rigged and it's broken. I will break it because I'm rich. I'm so rich, I don't need to take their money. And if I don't have to take their money, I can actually deliver real change because I don't have to worry about upsetting them. That, in a nutshell, was the premise. And that was his appeal. He would go up on the stage and, like, you watch this now and you're like, where's this guy? That famous clip where he goes, they're booing him, and he goes, that's all donors in the audience. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And everyone resonated, right, left, and center, said, yeah, fuck the system. That's true. They're bought off. That's why nothing ever changes. He's rich. They can't buy him. That was the idea. Obviously wasn't true. Then now in 24, when he got 200 million from Tim Mellon and from Elon Musk and Ken Griffin and Mark Andreessen, the usual suspects. And with J.D. Vance, like you said, it's just even worse. It's disgusting that anyone's even considering voting for him, to me, because it's like, at least Trump had kind of a claim to be that guy because he was this like bombastic billionaire from the private sector. Vance is like your prototypical political artifact, like a creation in a lab, like fake career, fake name, fake book, patrons in the CIA. Like, he's a nerd. He's not even really that conservative, the fake conversion. Maybe he's a real convert, but it seems too convenient. Like, he's everything that Trump ran against. He's like Jeb Bush. He was calling Trump a Nazi and voted for McMullen. And it was a never Trumper. So, and I'm just unloading my case against him, but it's like they could not be more different. So to your point, how are you going to sell that? I don't know how any MAGA person is buying it, but I think they will.
And there's another thing where, like, the vice presidency, the role, it's an interesting job because there's really not a job. Exactly. Mm-hmm. But it makes you kind of like, oh, you're the next in line. But if you just remove that for a second, who would have ever thought J.D. Vance could carry a national election? J.D. Vance is not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the most famous human being who's ever lived, who's bombastic and charismatic and just like owns a room like no other. Like, really is like as a unique gift in this way. Unfortunately, all of these gifts are only for like marketing and promotion and running for that. It's not like he has no governing, ability at all. But like J.D. Vance doesn't have that. He doesn't have that factor, the Hitler aura, as you would describe it. You know what I mean? But like so it's you're just looking at this and you go, so look, if you're telling me that like the radical left Democrats are the real threat, which granted they are, it's like it seems like we're staring at them having a chance. Now, I guess the only thing, and again, this is an interesting dynamic, one that I've never really seen before in my lifetime, is where you see when Donald Trump's support like plummets, it doesn't seem to give any boost to the Democrats, who are still kind of just like in the tank. And I think part of that is just because they failed so miserably over the last few years. But I do think, like, to your broader point, and I'm not even like saying 100% one way or the other, but it's something that like I think people who are dissidents, broadly speaking, of this system and are in opposition to the current regime need to think about a lot. Because, yeah, like, if our vote isn't a given, our support isn't a given, then it has to be worked for, you know? And also that things aren't always so clear, you know, like you could say Kamala Harris would have been worse than Donald Trump. Now, in this particular example, just on the border security, probably we're better off, all things considered, with Donald Trump. But at the same time, in a lot of ways, I think you could argue for right-wing America, it was better that Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Yes.
Like, things improved in a way that you really could not have imagined them improving under Donald Trump. And I mean, culturally speaking, like, even after Donald Trump won in 2016, the culture didn't swing to the right. The culture swung even further to the left. The culture only started swinging back to the right when Joe Biden was in. It actually was easier when there was a brain-dead president who represented the Democratic Party. And we had the wins, you know, in Twitter and the stuff I was talking about with, like, Target and Bud Light and all this stuff. And so, like, it's just not so you know, it's not always so obvious.
Yeah.
What's, you know, as a white men can't jump quote. Sometimes when you win, you actually lose, and sometimes when you lose, you actually win. And so I just think that I would hope, like, I hope maybe like Thomas Massie will run in primary hammer. I would at least hope that there's something that kind of like gets the conversation over, like, no, actually, how about we expect you to be this? We expect you to actually be good. And nothing crazy. I'm not like even asking for, this is why I corrected you on the no compromise. Like, I'll compromise, okay?
Yes.
But like, don't get us in another stupid war. Like, you know, make policy dictated off what's best for America. We have to do something about this debt problem. Like, we have to at least attempt to tackle it, because we're drowning in it. And the answer can't just be continue to debase the currency, because it's destroying our country. It's like, and don't have a wide open border. Like, I'm just like, so few things. Like, if you could just be good on these few things, I'd be like, okay, I'll hold my nose over the rest. But there's got to be some way, and especially now with the new media landscape, with the amount of influence that me and you have right now, I don't know, we've got some opportunities to say, like, hey, no, we're not just going to go along with this. We ought to plant a flag at like one reasonable point and go, we're not bending on this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we need to throw our weight around, and we'll have a much better opportunity to do that, because in 28, it's an open field on both sides. In 2016, 2024, Trump was like the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room, immovable. Like you, me, all of us put together. Like no one was going to knock him off that trajectory, which is why maybe it was naive for me to like withhold the vote outside of like reasons in principle or for rhetoric. But in 28, we can shape the race because, like you said, I don't think Vance is a shoo-in at all. He's not a national figure. Very good chance he goes the way of DeSantis, where it's a failure to launch, it's a crash and burn situation. And then it's wide open. And I would say that, people say that I'm like a Democrat or like I wanted Kamala to win. And it's like, you think I don't know that Trump is better than Kamala. Everyone knows that. But I love what you said about these like knock-on second-order effects, because you're 100% right. Biden winning and like Trump getting banned from YouTube and all that, that's probably why Elon bought Twitter. Like that maybe doesn't happen in a universe where Trump won the 2020 election and all the other downstream effects that took place. Trump being president now is sweeter than it would have been from 20 to 24. And you could have never predicted that, like you said, that Biden winning would force the pendulum to swing in the other direction. I think there was something true about, Trump and Kamala in 24. If Kamala inherited the war in Gaza and the Ukraine war, would we get something insanely radical in 28, like a real reset? Maybe. You can never know. What I would say, though, about 28, and this is maybe new, is like when you look at what Trump is doing, he's creating a lot of tension right now. The ICE raids, the militarization of law enforcement, the war everywhere in Venezuela, Ukraine, Iran, the advance of AI and technology. It's like, if a Democrat wins in 29, I'm moving to another country, because whoever comes into power from the left is going to want blood, because they're going to want vengeance for all. If they regroup, that's sort of presumptuous. If they regroup and reorganize, they're going to kill us, because like in Chicago, I live right by where this is happening. They set up this detention facility. They're rounding people up, putting hype edits of it on Twitter. It's pissing liberals off. Liberals are going to the place, protesting. The cops are beating the shit out of them and laughing and taunting them. More protesters come. Now they're ramming cars into ICE cars. The cops are shooting them. Now they're bringing in DHS. It's like we've gone so far up this escalation ladder in like 3 months. And what I fear is that Trump is not going to finish the job. He's not going to salt the earth and destroy Antifa. So all he's doing is pissing these people off. And that means the violence is going to get worse. They're going to organize. We're going to get like Mamdani for president in 28 or, you know, something along that vein. And that's why I think it's really important that like a Republican does win, but it just can't be Vance. So like that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, because they're really barking up the wrong tree, in my opinion. They're signing checks they can't cash.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't entirely close the door on Vance. I'm just like, he's got to show me something. Yeah. I got to see something that makes me go like, okay, I can get on board with this at least, which I just haven't seen yet. And I do worry about that a lot. I think it's something that, you know, like, you should pay attention if you think about, say, like kind of the way the culture shifted over the last few years, which really is hard to like overstate how crazy it is, dude. Like me and you talked 5 years ago. We were living in a different world when me and you talked 5 years ago. It's not that long, you know? And there's and you could obviously see right now, like looking at where the culture is, you're like, oh, the woke progressives really overplayed their hand in a lot of ways, right? And then there's a lesson in there to be learned that like things can change very quickly. And I do worry about that. You know, you worry about like how far the Democrats went last time they were in power and what they might do again. It's also important to know that there were like a couple, for as much as I always say, like the American system is pretty broken and the Constitution is pretty destroyed, but there still are some things. And I think people don't appreciate enough the fact that the two major ones that got shut down. Number one was the OSHA fax mandate. Joe Biden had legislated that every company with 100 or more employees must fire anyone who doesn't get this vaccine. This would have been a huge event and massive control of government, you know, particularly, you know, okay, not explicitly targeting right-wingers, but who the hell wasn't getting the vax, you know? And then the other one was the Ministry of Truth, which ended up getting shut down. Now, both of these ended up getting struck down, but man, might we be living in a different world had they gone through? And so who knows what they would try to do again. Also, as you talked about before, which is like kind of a broader theme, is that there is this, you know, Netanyahu's snapback about controlling the media and how he was just openly bragging. I really couldn't believe he was openly bragging. I said on the show, I said, I think this video is supposed to be a secret recording where he's talking in Hebrew. Like, is he actually just on camera saying this in English? Really? But so they're talking. But I do wonder, and I wonder how you think about this, because and this is something that concerns me, particularly about you and the Groypers, and more broadly, just kind of the Twitter culture or what's on social media. It does seem to me like I'm slow motion, almost like watching this movie play out, where it's like, it would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. You know, 5 years ago, or I guess 6 years ago, the second time you were on the podcast, you had just been kicked off YouTube. It was just ramping up that, like, hey, you simply can't do these things on YouTube. Even, like, I'm going to put this up on YouTube. I guess we'll test it. We'll test where they're at now. But I just think you're doing other interviews that are up there. I figured, why not? I think it's okay. We're in a, like, you can say things on Twitter now that you couldn't have dreamed of saying. But now that the censorship regime has been rolled back and, like, Nazi shit is just flooding in, it does seem to me like, oh man, this is like setting up the pretext. It's setting up the pretext for like, hey, you guys wanted to have freedom of speech? Well, here's what it actually looks like. Now can we all agree that this must be shut down? And like, I'm not saying I know that's going to happen, but it's a real concern of mine. And I wonder what you think about all that.
I totally agree. And the first time that kind of was clocking to me was when, I think it was on Fresh and Fit. And I love Myron. And I like Fresh too, but it was on their show where I think some like ghetto black woman said like, fuck F the Jews and we love it. And it went like super viral. And like,
yeah, I think I saw this clip.
Usual Suspects seized up on that, and it's like, and I didn't say anything to him privately, but you could see where that's going to go in very short order, where there's no shortage of stuff like that you can find, you know, that certain people are putting out there on a daily basis. And it's not measured. It's not nuanced. There's no point. It's just vulgar. It's vulgar. It is hateful. It definitely probably crosses a line. It doesn't like serve the conversation. Like, it's one thing to say Jewish identity, blah, blah, blah. It's another to say F these people. Like, that's different. And I 100% believe there's going to be another censorship push, and they're going to use shit like that to justify it. So that's why I've really tried, and I'm not the most disciplined person, but I've really been trying this year to be more restrained and measured. And that, you know, and the audience, they perceive everything as cucking. If you're not sprinting towards the most vulgar, extreme, fanatical, they say that you got the call. But it's so important because there is a window of opportunity here. And you and I have been around long enough to recognize that because you're right. It was a different country in 2015, completely different country. And we don't want to squander that. But then again, you wonder how much of it is even in our control. Will they do it anyway?
No, I think that's right.
We should control what we can control.
No, I think that's right. And I think that, you know, it's something for us to even, you know, always keep in mind too, because it's hard, like when you start growing, I know you've, I'm sure, experienced this, right? But it's like like when you have a show and it's getting like 10,000 views a show, you can kind of know your audience. You're like, I know what my audience thinks. When you're getting like 500,000, you know, views in a show, it's like, if 50,000 people are furious at you, it's like the whole lot. But actually, no, that's not the whole lot. There's a much bigger audience. And like, even as you've said, as you've been trying to, not moderate isn't the word, but like just be more careful. Or just be more mature, I guess, which is natural for all of us. I'm still a big child in a lot of ways. But you kind of realize that it's like, well, as you're doing that, actually, your audience is growing. It's not like you're losing your audience. It's not like they're abandoning you. I do just think that there is, you know, like even what you were saying with that, it goes, the problem with, you know, because who the hell cares what some ghetto black chick says on Myron's show, you know? And I like Myron. I've done his show before, but who cares what one of these fucking chicks says on there? But the reason to care is because that is the type of thing that will convince normal, reasonable people that, yeah, you know what? In fact, you're right. This is too fucking insane. Like, they're praising Adolf Hitler. Like, this is, and so you just like, I don't know, like in the same like vein of these second and third order effects, it's like I just think people, you want to try to encourage people to be smart. You're right, we can't control what our audience says, and me and you have experienced that in the last couple weeks. A very clear demonstration of that, and that's good. Our audience shouldn't just be taking our orders or anything, but we should exert influence where we can and go like, hey, think about this. Just like be smart and think about what you're setting up here, because of course, like there's no question that they're thinking about plugging up this hole. Now, what they're going to be able to do about it, who knows? You know, it does feel to me like maybe this thing's gotten away from them, but it's not like they don't have a few tricks up their sleeves. And so we should. I mean, I think we should just think about these things and what the response to it might be, because they're certainly planning. They're very aware of this. You know, that's one of the things that was interesting about Netanyahu's meeting there. It was so interesting that, I mean, I know you must have just been cackling, laughing like I was at this, but the fact that Netanyahu had to deny, like, okay, the second act is coming, or the next act is coming, and I worry about what that's going to be. Yeah, I totally agree. You're waiting for the next shoe to drop, you know, because we've experienced this like suffocating political control that seems like they almost know every permutation of how things are going to end up, and now it's like, so Mark Zuckerberg decided free speech is good now? Like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that there is an ulterior motive. And I think that I'm always just in favor of doing the thing that's unpredictable. Because if to the extent that they have power, it's because they can predict what will happen next or how we'll behave. And so that's why I try to just surprise people and do the thing they're not expecting me to do. Like, if they bring me back on Twitter and maybe there's an angle, it's because they're expecting me to be what they think I am, which is a troll or a hater or whatever. So maybe walk it back or be restrained or, you know. And I think that we really need to be intentional and cautious. Like after Charlie died, I called up a lot of people that I know that are like influencers. And I was like, we just really need to be careful to not step into a trap, because it seems like whenever there's a crisis, and you never think it's going to happen, but when there's a crisis, you get kind of riled up and you act in ways that are not smart, you know, and by you, I mean anyone does. Yeah. Me, you, anyone, because emotions are high, rationality goes out the window, and it's easy to forget all the hard-fought lessons we've learned over the years that have, you know, produced bad results for us. So, you know, with all the violence, chaos, the uncertainty, unprecedented nature of where we are, we just have to be extremely cautious, vigilant, intentional about what we're doing, what we're saying. It just can't be sloppy.
You know, because if we're sloppy, the thing about Netanyahu and them is they are really smart and they are you think they don't know? They know. Like you said, they know astutely. Even to the extent that Matt Walsh says, let them kill each other. That's a brilliant innovation because they knew the pro-Israel thing was losing. And you think they're just going to keep pressing that button until it doesn't work anymore. No, they switched up quick and said, we can't get him to support. We'll get him to say this line about, well, we don't want Muslims here. They reinvent all the time. So the game is not over. That's what people need to keep in mind. You run through the finish line, you run through first base. It isn't over. And I like what you said. They always have something up their sleeve. So you can't presume that we're running away with it. We get careless, sloppy, do a victory celebration. It's still in flux.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about this because I think this is a topic that I find very fascinating, and I think you're kind of like uniquely like a perfect example of this. But so 2019, you got your YouTube channel taken, and then was that around the same time you got kicked off everything else, or was it like Twitter? Like when did you get kicked off of that? I know you ultimately got let back on, but like there was a period where you were gone.
I was banned from YouTube in February 2020, and then Twitter in July 21.
Okay, all right. So there's a real interesting dynamic to me, and I watch this happen with people who I know, people I'm friendly with. Like I knew, Gavin McInnes, a good example of somebody who got canceled off everything and really hurt him, really sidelined him. Stefan Molyneux kicked off everything, really sidelined him. Like it's almost like they're not in the conversation anymore, at least the way that they were. Right. Milo, a great example of that, where he was really seemed like he was about to break through to mainstream success, and they squashed that. And somewhere along the years, it seemed like that started backfiring. I thought Andrew Tate, was an interesting example. I had never heard of Andrew Tate until he got canceled from everything, and then all of a sudden it was just like dominating the algorithm, and he was everywhere. And I think you were one of those guys too. So even you got back on Twitter, and I'm sure that helped, but you were already kind of surging before, I think, if I've got that correct. And so was there a period? So you're out there in the unpersoned world, and was there a time where you were like, oh, this is actually working here in this world? And what were you streaming on?
I was on Cozy TV, which is my own site.
Oh, you just made your own thing. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I haven't heard of that. But so that was, and did you start getting numbers there?
No, I was languishing. It was tough. I mean, the thing about deplatforming is it works. When I got banned from everything, I was not getting great numbers. It was when I got back on Rumble that I got on Rumble in the first place.
Rumble seems like it was a big deal in the set because they were the first one who really started doing numbers.
Yes. Yeah, and it was a live streaming platform. For a period, I was banned from all live streaming platforms, from roughly 21 until Rumble, I think, opened up live streaming to everybody, which maybe was like 2023, right around there. That was the wilderness. I literally could not stream my show unless I made a website, which is very costly and time consuming. And what helped was being prolific and having like a core of supporters.
Yeah.
I do a show every day. There's a parasocial relationship. It's a cult-like following. But a lot of these guys, they either stop making content, like Molyneux, they upload it to a platform that doesn't work, like BitChute was pretty rough in the early days, and Gavin put all his stuff behind a paywall, and that's just, in my opinion, a bad business model, because it's like you got to give out the free samples to get people to walk through the door.
Right.
And when it's to pay to get in, you don't get the conversion.
You don't get new listeners. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had a strategy where I said, I'm going to take a financial hit. Like I made no money for 2 years, but I knew it's like if I keep people coming through the door, eventually things will change or I could still make a little money if it's free and if it's good. And that's how I was able to just kind of like survive, but I'm still dependent on platform access.
Yeah, but it does, okay, fair enough. But it does just seem like, whatever, if the goal was to shut you up, well, that certainly didn't work out very well for them. And there does seem, I think there's just something interesting about the fact that it seems, at least like we were just saying, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it seems at least for the time being that the cancel thing just stopped working and actually started like kind of injecting more life into the people who are getting canceled. Like I thought, like obviously you're saying these years were rough, but on net, I think you may have benefited from that. And maybe I'm wrong, because maybe if you were just on YouTube and Twitter this whole time, you lost out on a lot from that. So like maybe I'm wrong about that, but at the very least, it seems to have not worked or something like that. And I thought Andrew Tate and Alex Jones too were like kind of examples of that, where it was just like, that's not, you didn't remove them from the conversation. They're more, like all three of you guys are more present than ever. Whereas some of those other guys just like never kind of got back to where they were. I guess Gavin is back on Twitter now, I think. He
just last week, I think. Yeah, to me, it's more, in my opinion, a function of your strategy and just kind of, it seems that the people that have survived the longest are the people with a show. Only because if you have a show, people know when to tune in. It is every day. You know, like Alex Jones does 3 hours every day. And he's on radio, which really helps. Because I don't think he ever got censored from there. But I was never a believer in the Streisand effect thing, because it's like I can't process credit cards for my business. There's like there's no Streisand effect where you can't make money, you can't have a bank account, you know, and all that stuff. So it really, in my opinion, was Trump got banned from everything. And I think venture capital and private equity, they do what they do best, and they looked at him like an undervalued asset. And they came in and said, this guy's banned from everything. We can actually upset Silicon Valley and the market there if we make censorship-proof Rumble. It's like if I'm banned on Twitter, no one's going to build a new Twitter around me. But if Trump is banned on Twitter, you actually can build a Rumble, a True Social around him. And in a way, that explains to me 2024, because that is who came in. Little tech, you know, it's Andreessen Horowitz, it's the Teal Club, it's Elon Musk. He was kind of like their guy, commercially and politically. And then I think the rising tide lifted all the boats. That's kind of how I interpret it, because we were headed towards like total annihilation of free speech. Like my listener base shrunk dramatically when I was in the wilderness.
Yeah, wasn't it wild seeing like everybody flip out about the FCC chairman threatening Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah,
and there's free speech is finally at risk in America after like the last 5 years. And you're like, really? Oh, really? Was this the one? Which, by the way, was a stupid thing for the FCC chair to say that. Totally, like, talk about seizing defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yes.
Like, you're just, okay, now you handed them a talking point. This guy is dying in the wilderness, you know? This is a couple other things I want to talk about. I want to talk about censorship, and then I want to hit, like, Tucker, Candace, and some of that stuff. And but, so, there, you know, there's just been a lot of questions that are raised over the censorship stuff, and like I said, there's some areas that I struggle with myself, like how exactly I feel. I think I kind of landed about where you were on the Charlie Kirk thing. Like, look, like the government shouldn't be involved. They're not technically inciting violence, but like there really should be consequences for this. There should be some type of social consequences, and in fact, I'm a big believer in social consequences. But what do you think, like, in terms of? You know, I think I heard you say something like, look, the right's in power now. When the left gets back in power, they're going to be censoring people. Mm-hmm. So maybe we should be doing things like that now. But, like, what do you mean by that? Or what, like, do you think the FCC chair, I mean, you seem to agree with me when I said that, but, like, should the FCC chairman be threatening Jimmy Kimmel and people like that?
No, I think that was just tactically dumb.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I do believe that we are in, like, a war, basically. We are in a race. And we know that because, like you said, under Biden, like, they were engaging in censorship. It was coming from the press office. It was coming from, I don't know how many departments and agencies, but it was quite a few of them that they were giving orders. Take this account, that post, take that down, the OSHA stuff. And they wasted no time in doing that. Like, Biden got in, and it was just a whirlwind of J6, censorship, everything you can think of, a naked power grab. And I do believe that if Trump leaves office and a Democrat comes in, they're going to do it again. And so I'm a big believer that the right wing needs to really disempower the left institutionally. Like, if they were doing it under a different pretense, I would like what they're doing at Harvard and Columbia. The problem is they're doing it.
It's not on behalf of America.
Right, for some other reason. But it's like, we should work to disorganize the left. We should work to go after their radicals, like Antifa. We should put the pressure on them hard. We should put the pressure on the far left. We should put the pressure on their funding mechanisms, their stuff, because if we lose, they will do it to us indiscriminately. They have no qualms about it, and they'll be more competent about it, and like, then they'll make the country the way they want it to be. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in, like, we should use the levers of power. I don't know about, like, censoring them on Twitter, let's say, but institutionally, yeah, we should be playing to win.
Yeah, I said on my show, and this is, from my particular strain of libertarianism or whatever, but I was like, I basically said the same thing as you. I was like, look, I don't view it as a free speech violation because, like, Jimmy Kimmel isn't a person anymore. Like, you're part of the regime. Like once you, there is, and I know it's a bit of a gray area of where you draw the line when someone, I'm not going to say, hey, you pay your taxes, therefore you're part of the regime. But, like, no, when you just become what Jimmy Kimmel is, you're no longer a citizen expressing their views. It just tactically, it was such a blunder. The guy's already done. We're killing him already. Mm-hmm. So, like, what do we even? Me and you get better numbers than these guys get. So, like, why do we need to make them a free speech martyr? Like, right. It was just like shit. But I do think that, and it's one of the great disappointments of the Trump administration, is that, for all that talk about, like, Project 2025 and how he's going to be, like, permanently, he's going to overthrow democracy and all of this. It's like, okay, well, that was never, but there should have been, like, this time, like, conservative and right-wing America should have been like, hey, we have to do something that, like, dismantles their mechanism. And I do think, like, look, again, all of government's all of college is a government program. Mm-hmm. The whole thing's a government program. All of that. It's like, yeah, we should be shutting down as much of this stuff as we can. Just destroying it. So I don't really think, and maybe this is where me and you disagree, but I never believe that right-wingers are going to be able to capture and use these institutions. I think bureaucratic institutions are progressive by their very nature. They're egalitarian by their very nature. It's like that. But you can smash a lot of it, or at least attempt to. Some attempt. I mean, maybe you get struck down by the courts, but, like, at least try. There seems to be no attempt to even be like, how do we make sure this doesn't happen to our guys next time? Right. And in fact, I think part of that's because Trump doesn't really even view them as his guys. Yeah. Like, Donald Trump, I thought one of them, and you were there on January 6th, so curious to ask you a little bit about that. But I thought
the battle is yours to begin, heroes.
You need a ride.
What?
Who was that girl that you were messaging a while back from the training course?
The one from Derry. What's her name?
Ashley.
What happened there?
Nothing.
Nothing as in you went on a date? Nothing happened? Like what?
Nothing as in nothing.
You should ring her.
I can't ring her, Ali.
Why not?
I don't know, maybe I'll text her or something.
Ugh, weak.
Weak?
Weak. Texting weak, calling strong. Everybody knows that.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa. How do you know I'm not, anyway?
What? Like riding? Believe me, mate. It's obvious. You need a ride.
What?
Who was that girl that you were messaging a while back from the training course?
The one from Derry. What's her name?
Ashley.
What happened there?
Nothing.
Nothing as in you went on a date? Nothing happened? Like what?
Nothing as in nothing.
You should ring her.
I can't ring her, Ali.
Why not?
I don't know, maybe I'll text her or something.
Ugh, weak.
Weak?
Weak. Texting weak, calling strong. Everybody knows that.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa. How do you know I'm not, anyway?
Nice, haul, cracking that strong box.
Where's my half? Fucking weak now.
Well, let's see. After you kick upstairs, you'll net...
What are you, my accountant?
I'm better with numbers than 9/10 of your accounts.
Kind of in arrears in a respect department, aren't you?
Fuck you talking about?
Your future stepson. Card game, come on.
Are you here because McBride was killed? That white man? Or is it because we had to go to Washington and pay you not?
There are 296 games in a complete US N64 set, and I'm only...
I will be the judge now.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Spread.
Cowards fear the call of battle. Well done so far, but I will judge for myself whether you are worthy. It seems I have been too gentle. Enough! Your worth is proved. With you as my champions, Helya will fall, and I will at long last be free of the curse that binds me here. Beware, champions. Helya's realm is guarded by a savage beast, bred from the stuff of nightmares.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Well fought. Now onward to Helya. This day her treachery shall be ended.
Oh no! Odin's mighty champions have come to end my reign. Whatever shall I do? So kind of you to deliver your souls to me. It will save my Valkyr the trouble of fetching them from the surface world.
Stop attacking.
Drown in despair, lapdogs of Odin! Soon you will join the ranks of my Kavaldir!
Beware.
Lurks within the fog!
Watch your step.
Your efforts are for naught, mortals. Odin will never be free.
4, 3, 2...
Watch your step.
Odin, damn you!
Our paths cross at last.
Change is good.